Hey everyone, so I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today I have got my cup of tea and I'm going to share with you more about Cry It Out. I've had quite a lot of questions since I did my first video and I just wanted to address those in one place. So if you haven't seen my first video, it's called How We Did Sleep Training with Our 18-month-old. At the time there weren't many videos about how to sleep train a toddler. I think most people do sleep training when baby's a lot younger and we just didn't for reasons that I go into in that video. Cry It Out isn't something I ever thought I would do, and it's something I never really wanted to do, but it's something that I think we had to do and I am so glad that we did, and that's what I want to talk about here. Most of the questions that I get are, is it still working? Is he still sleeping? And I can happily tell you he still sleeps. So currently he's 23 months old, he's almost turning 2, and he is sleeping basically 14 hours throughout the day. So he wakes up somewhere about 7:30, 8 o'clock. That's quite flexible. Sometimes he has woken up at 6 o'clock and sometimes he wakes up at 8:45. And then we just kind of run through the day. He goes down for a nap about 1 o'clock and will sleep until about 3. Again, that's a little bit flexible. So for instance, on Sunday, he went to sleep at 2 and woke up at 5. I had to go and wake him up. And then for night times, he goes down somewhere between 7 and 8 p.m. Teeny bit of flexibility on that, but we never push it past 8:30 because then it just messes up the following day terribly. Is he still going down quietly? That is a good question. He goes down quietly kind of in phases, and let me try and explain this. So he will go down quietly if he's been in the same situation and done a similar kind of day for a couple of days running. So for example, if we go away at the weekend, he'll probably stop fighting to sleep a couple of days after that. So like the Tuesday, Wednesday, until we end up having a funny routine again in the weekend. And then we do the whole cycle again. So it's probably about 50% of the time that he actually is not fighting me to sleep. But then if we have quite a dull weekend or like a pretty sort of structured weekend, then he won't fight to sleep throughout the whole time. It also depends on how much he's been kind of learning and processing and whether we've done any big things that day. I notice on days when we've done something a bit different, like we've gone swimming or something like that, then he either doesn't want that day to end or he's so busy trying to process it that he's just really struggling and he's kind of struggling to communicate that. So in balance, he's going down to sleep quietly half the time. I think it's worth the 1 minute of crying for him to go to sleep because all he's doing is moaning that he can't play anymore. At this age as well, he totally knows where I am. He knows that I'll come in and get him if there's a problem, and also we have a video monitor. We didn't have a video monitor when we started, and to be honest, you don't need a video monitor. You can totally tell just from the sound, and it's probably better from the sound. But I think as they get a bit older, it's really helpful to see that they're not, flying out of the crib or anything like that. I get a few questions about whether or not we did co-sleeping. We never did co-sleeping. I think that was just because he was a preemie baby and he was in the neonates for 3 weeks. We never really established that as something we did straight away. He always knew sleeping in his own cot, so that's just, we never really had an option there. Peppermint tea, it's really good. So would I recommend Cry It Out? And the answer is like 100% yes. I think the key part is to absolutely persist with it. So it might take you a week, it might take you 2 weeks. Usually when I speak to people that have already done it, they say it's somewhere between one and 2 weeks, and that sometimes you have to retrain them. So say like you're out at someone else's house or you've gone on holidays in another house. So you might have 1 night, you might have 2 nights, you might actually have no nights of him or her like crying to sleep for a few minutes. So what do we do if he's crying past 2 minutes? Because that does actually happen quite a lot. The first thing that we do is we just try and detect what kind of cry it is. We know at this point what kind of cry he's crying. Is he crying an annoyed, you left me, I can't believe you left me, I wanted to play kind of cry? If he's doing that, we kind of just let him cry for a few more minutes. Quite often he'll put himself to sleep with that kind of a cry, but sometimes he just wants us to go up, just reassure him. So we just go in the room and we say, snuggle down now, everything's okay, nanites, go to sleep, all of those kind of phrases, and then we shut the door. That works about 90% of the time. The other 10% of the time, we check his head to check his temperature really quickly, check his bottom to check that we haven't forgotten to change his nappy before we go to sleep. And the third thing that we do, and that actually works quite a lot of the time, is to give him a sip of water. And sometimes just a sip of water works totally. He has a very particular cry for if he's still hungry, and I know what that sound is. So that actually happened the other night. He was screaming and screaming, and it lasted about 1 minute. I knew exactly what kind of cry that was. And I went upstairs and we gave him a banana, and we just sat with him and read some books in the dark, and then put him back to bed, and he was totally happy until, I think that was the morning he woke up at 8:45. We get quite a lot of people asking us about naps because he is a really amazing sleeper in the day. He sleeps somewhere between 2 and 3 hours, at least an hour and a half. And I think quite a lot of that comes down to absolute persistence. So when we started doing Cry It Out, my mum made sure that we did cry out for the naps as well, because it would be otherwise inconsistent. But I think before that he always just napped all the way through, and I think that even stems back to when he was really little, because my husband would just make sure that if he was stirring from his 45-minute cycle, I think it's quite helpful to know a bit about the sleep cycle of a baby, so make sure you give that a bit of a Google. Basically at 45 minutes they're in such a light phase of sleep that you need to make sure that the situation is the same as when they fell asleep, but also dark, quiet, all of those things. But it also does take training. So when he was really little, so this is for all of you with newborns that are watching this, or even when they're 8 or 9 months, I think you could probably do it. What you should do when they're stirring for their 45 minutes, if they're really having problems, you just need to keep putting them back down to sleep. That's the key. That's the key to sleeping, is just keep putting them back down. You are the parent, and you need to tell them and show them what to do. So you can lovingly just pick them up and give them a cuddle, or you can just put a blanket over them again, say some calming words. Just do something similar that reminds them that it's time to go back to sleep. Having said all that, there are children that just want to sleep for 45 minutes and wake up and play, and that, I'm afraid, is just something that some parents have to deal with. And I do feel like we are very, very blessed, and I'm still very grateful to the neonatal unit in Belgium for all of their help in helping him sleep, because I think it can really start from a very young age. Bedtime routines. It's probably changed a bit since 18 months. We've really tried to simplify it because then it can work with different people. So all we do now is we take him upstairs, we change his nappy and put him in jimmy jammies, and then we brush our teeth. Well, he brushes his teeth and then we brush his teeth. And then we go back, he picks a couple of books to read, he sits on our lap. Sometimes he has a drink, depends on how much he's had that day, but we always try and offer him some water. And then we put him in bed, put him in his sleeping bag, and we still tell him the same story all about his day, and then we just say nights and shut the door. And he knows the word nights now, and so he says nights, and sometimes he blows kisses, and it's very cute. I still kind of can't believe I'm saying that, because if you'd have asked me that 7 months ago, I would have said, no, absolutely not, my son would never do that. And he does now. It's really lovely. So I've just been editing the footage and I've missed something really, really important. Buds is now awake and he's over there playing with some water play. And the thing I wanted to say is that I think it's really, really important that you teach your child how to sleep, whether you do that with Cry It Out sleep training, or you can find a gentler option that works for you guys. The development of your child is so, so important, and sleep is an absolutely vital part of that. And that's really why I think a lot of people end up choosing Cry It Out, is because it's a last option and it definitely is an option that works. The absolute key thing is that if you don't teach your child how to sleep, how else are they going to figure it out? How are they going to figure out how to sleep if you don't show them? I would really, really love if this was a place of conversation for everybody that has done Cry It Out or is thinking about doing it or has any questions. Please leave questions down below, and those of you that have done Cry It Out, please leave a comment and say how you did it and how you got on with it and that kind of thing, because I think that's really helpful to anybody watching. So if you enjoyed this type of video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already for more of this sort of style of video. I put out 1 or 2 videos every week. So have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch up with you soon in a new video. Bye!